Hello everyone, welcome you all to another episode on Azure On Air. And this time I have got a very interesting personality with me, Ahmad. The few minutes before we started this podcast, I found his energy to be so contagious, and I'm sure you are going to enjoy this episode of my interaction with Ahmad on Azure and its benefits. Welcome, Ahmad.
Focus on your business application and get going. Exactly. And this drives us to another point, which is what are the benefits? This is a common question that every time someone from an industry that's different than the IT just ask me 2 points, like the cost is one, cost savings, of course, and the competitive advantage. The security is no longer bounded to the network perimeter, it goes beyond that in Azure. Okay, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining this podcast. So today we have an very interesting topic from my point of view. It is what is Azure benefits.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a great point to, after working and digging deep into the technology, to reflect on what is the actual values that we are providing to organizations. So it is a great opportunity, and sometimes I do this with my colleagues, just go to reflect, what are we providing our organizations, what are we providing our end users that are eventually using our services or products. So I would like to do something just to
Hmm.
get a step back and look at what is Azure. So this is a common question that every time someone from an industry that's different than the IT just ask me, what do you do for a living? I tell them software, it's okay. But whenever I mention the cloud, they know they heard about it. They know that
Hmm.
they know Azure, but what
Hmm.
is it exactly? So I couldn't find the better statement than CEO Microsoft Satya Nadella has explained. Simple
Hmm.
statement that's called Azure is the world's computer. I love that.
Wow.
And the reason is, yeah, exactly. It's a simple statement, yet it's a bold statement at the same time. It's
Hmm.
the world's computer. Yep. So
Yeah.
this means that you are providing capabilities of computation power.
Hmm.
Let's just try to simplify. There are
Hmm.
storage and other things, but just computer for the whole world. So imagine that kind of power in a simple statement like that. I will mention at the end of the podcast the book that I
Hmm.
got this statement from. So just to give credit to the author who did that.
Got it.
But it's an amazing statement. I would say it's a
Hmm.
simple statement, yet it hits the Azure description to the point. So,
Exactly.
and this is what is Azure is. It's providing services for people and making it accessible to everyone around the globe.
Mm.
And these kinds of services are categorized. So we have different levels, I would say, of control, if you will. So if you
Mm. Mm.
want more control, you can get something like an infrastructure as a service, which means
Mhm.
it's similar to the virtualization that you have on premises. So you can have provisioning for virtual machines and so on. You
Mhm.
can have a little bit more control, yet more responsibility at the same time.
Mhm.
To have a platform as a service, which are
Mhm.
platforms provided
Mhm.
by Microsoft as a service, and all
Mhm.
the way to the software as a service, which is the total abstraction level that you can
Mhm.
have. You can just simply do like Office 365, for example. You can do just application configurations. You don't really know or even care about what's underlying happening in the underlying infrastructure and technologies and the scalability and all that.
Mm.
So it's like a balance between how much Microsoft manage and how much you want to manage. So this is basically the types that are provided to you. Of course, there are
Mm.
different services, of course, like storage, networking, um, compute, platform, like a service bus, for example, like topics, queues. All these are different types of services in itself, but these are the main categories that are provided through Azure. So it reminds me, I don't know about you, but it reminds me
Mhm.
about, remember that operating systems, for example, are an
Yeah.
abstraction level as well in itself. Like Windows,
Mhm.
for example, I don't have to write code on a machine code or assembly code to draw a pixel in my screen. I can actually leverage all the interactions with the hardware through the operating system. So it's like an abstraction level provided to you. So whatever I explained of course, it's a lot of explanation, but I have to do it every time. But whenever I explain this to people, I think they got it, especially from the operating
Yeah.
system side.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Yeah.
I completely agree with whatever you highlighted, Ahmed. And to add on to that, when we look
Yeah.
back, a decade back, the way we were building applications, where we
Yeah.
had the servers existing right beside us, and we need to take care of ensuring that they are on so that my application hosted is available to my users. Now we
Yes.
are in an awesome era of application development, is how I would like to express it. Like you have a lot of complexities being taken care of by the cloud
Yeah.
service provider, and you have, as you rightly mentioned, we have options on choosing infrastructure as a service or platform as a service or SaaS model based on our business need, and you get going like set your innovations on the air, and all that you need to focus on is the business that we are dealing with. Awesome, isn't it?
Exactly, exactly. And then all the underlying technologies and operations and provisioning and technicalities, all the plumbings are
Yeah.
handled by Microsoft. That's amazing to have this like offloaded to Microsoft and a reliable partner that you can work with, focus on
Hmm.
your business application and get going. Exactly. And
Awesome.
this drives us to another point, which is what
Hmm.
are the benefits? This is the topic of our podcast today. So, what are the
Yeah.
true benefits and the business? I would say the business drivers for organizations to actually move to the cloud
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And I think it's two main pillars. Please feel free to let me know if you want to add something else. But it's
Yeah, sure,
like
sure.
2 points. Like the cost is one, cost savings, of
Mm-hmm.
course,
Hmm.
and the competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So I think these are the two main uh, pillars, I would say, that are actually the motivations or the business drivers
Mm-hmm.
for organizations to move on to the cloud.
Hmm.
Mainly the cost savings for some who are not yet engaged, in the cloud yet and don't know anything about the cloud. They are looking for cost savings, as with any organization. They are looking
Hmm.
to reduce the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, unfortunately, from my side, I see that a lot with organizations that treat IT departments as cost
Mm-hmm.
centers. They don't know anything about them. You just leave them alone in an
Mm-hmm.
isolated bubble, and you
Mm-hmm.
just want to minimize the cost. So whenever they hear the cloud and see all the pre-sales pitches, they would like to actually go for that particular purpose, only the cost savings. In my point of view, this is
Mm-hmm.
not exactly. Uh, I would say it's good, of course, to do cost savings from a business perspective, but you should actually reap the benefits of the full potential of the cloud, and this what
Mm-hmm.
makes uh, difference between an awesome organization that has a lot of edge over another, and actually could eventually acquire more market share eventually based
Mm-hmm.
on the technology that you leverage.
Yeah.
So yeah, so from these two pillars, do you would like to add something else? Do you think of it or?
Yeah, specific to this cost part, I would like to highlight like there is no pre-computational cost when I need to get started with cloud, which was high in case of the other way of building when non-cloud application development,
Yeah,
isn't it,
true,
Ahmad? Here, like as my business grows, without any hesitation, I can scale my cloud environment without any an initial investment into the pre-computational cost is
true.
something awesome, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes it is a challenging, and we'll talk about that later on, but challenging for organization not to have like
Mm-hmm.
a bill of quantities at hand.
Mm, yeah.
You don't know how you're gonna pay for it. Of course, there is calculator and estimations, but it's after all the estimations.
Mm,
But they are thinking of the traditional way of how many servers, how many racks I'm going to buy, how many
yeah.
processors, how many storage. So they want to figure a number like the old ways. But this,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually, as you said, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the other point
Well,
from the cost savings is the competitive advantage, and this is a
yeah.
huge umbrella, I would say.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Of course, the competitive advantage can manifest into different things, like for example, the time to market,
Yeah.
which eventually, again, it's a big umbrella, but let's think about it together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time to market. Um, which means that the tools that you're using, the practices are using, are really providing productivity gains to the team that you have, for
True.
example. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Another part of the competitive advantage is the unprecedented, and I would say it's just, yeah, this is an unprecedented set of tools that you
Hmm.
have at your
Hmm.
disposal now. For example,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
artificial intelligence, machine
Yeah.
learning, big data analytics,
Hmm.
all this kind of services that were not you will not be able to build it
Hmm.
in a
Hmm. Hmm.
traditional environment at on premises. Previously, like 10, 15 years ago,
Hmm. Hmm.
doing like machine learning algorithms in your data center was not possible actually for
Yeah.
most of typical data centers. Yeah,
True. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I
uh,
like I need not be an expert of a lot of things to consume it nowadays. Like, and
exactly.
when we see the real time requirements from the users, people are so demanding. That is, end users of our application are demanding. They want the application to be reactive, intelligent,
Yeah,
and whatnot. And with the invention of these services, it becomes much easy for me to think beyond or think out of the box. Like, I
exactly.
can plug and play, put things together. It's more like building Lego blocks now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that.
Yeah,
I love the statement about end user expectations. Exactly, are
yeah.
true, because
Hmm.
uh, they have more and more expectations because of the competition now and the technology domain.
Hmm.
So now
Hmm.
you can find a small startup that's doing something really brilliant, because again, you don't have the infrastructure at house. They don't have the technologies. They can actually do a proof of concept and throw it away. All this
Hmm.
kind of feasibility and unprecedented reach and accessibility, I would say, that makes the competitive advantage as a second pillar in the Azure benefits for organizations. So these
Absolutely.
are the two main pillars that I would say. Of course, there are other features that can
Hmm.
contribute
Hmm.
to the
Hmm.
competitive advantage, like the scalability and elasticity and the
Yeah.
availability. These are again, and the global reach as well. Uh, Prior to the cloud, we have hosting platforms that
Hmm.
will mostly would be like on a national level, but will never
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
able
Hmm.
to grow and to have like disaster recovery technologies and all this kind
Yeah.
of uh, all around the globe. And this is what makes it really mind blowing, you know.
In a way, like, it's made accessible to everyone, say even a student who can get on with an Azure subscription can start building their application on the fly, and the next 5 minutes I can see it go live. that's
Exactly.
that's um, that's the way things are emerging, is giving shapes to our dreams so very easily.
Amazing. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And this what provides the
Mhm.
agility for the
Yeah.
organizations to move quickly from
Yeah.
something that changed. Like, for example, a pandemic
Hmm.
that happens. Now let's move to the cloud. Let's do the elasticity. If you do this in a data center at your
Hmm. Hmm.
on-premises
Hmm.
data center, it will not be feasible. You have to purchase actually racks of servers and to wait for it to come. And it will take like months and months to to scale your data center. But now it's this kind of elasticity and scalability that makes it really, and makes the companies actually have the agility to respond to changes quickly. So
Correct.
all this contribute to the competitive advantage, which is, in my opinion, some industries are becoming really fierce because
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
have the technologies, of course, from different cloud providers, and
Mm-hmm.
they have the reach and accessibility, as you mentioned, just one click away to provision. You don't have to open a ticket or wait for someone like the old days hosting platform. Oh, please, can you provision this VM? No,
Yeah.
it's no longer this.
No
Yeah.
longer.
So exactly, exactly.
Exactly. So I think we have spoke enough about the cloud, the
Yep.
positivity, benefits of cloud, and
Uh-huh.
now the listeners might be too motivated to try it out. But we should
Yeah.
also enlighten them about the challenges that people should be aware of when they onboard into cloud, isn't it, Ahmed?
Yeah, thank you for talking about this point as well. I have
Yeah.
a lot of real world experience with
Hmm. Hmm.
clients
Hmm.
whenever we are consulting them to move to the cloud and how they could move to the cloud. And in the very early stages, whenever we are involved in this kind of strategic thinking about the
Hmm.
direction of the
Hmm.
company, um, I think, uh, as I mentioned earlier, focusing only on cost savings
Hmm.
could be a good start, but
Yeah.
you cannot think in the long term with only cost savings, because you're
True.
losing a lot of potential of having the cloud benefits, having like native cloud, native workloads, all the kind
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
true
Hmm.
benefits that really materialize into your solutions will be uh, it, basically you will be actually treating your cloud platform as a traditional hosting, yeah, at the
Yeah.
end of the day. So you don't want to do
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Yeah.
this is one of the key considerations I would say to take into account if you're moving to the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Also, technical
Mm-hmm.
people, I've met a lot of clients who are from technical backgrounds who love
Mm-hmm.
shiny toys, like to see these technologies just because they are new.
Yeah.
So it's our responsibility as consultants to just try to put them on the right direction, focus and
Mm.
think together about what to try, what to do, and what not to do at this
Correct.
stage.
Mm.
But most importantly, the thing that I ask clients
Mm-hmm.
is about the strategic direction of the company. What are you looking
Yeah.
for? What are you looking for into accomplish in like the 5, 10 years from now? For example,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm.
having I want to make sure that they are not blindly jumping into the cloud without prior planning
Mm.
or any
Correct.
kind of strategic direction.
Mm. Futuristic vision should be there when we decide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we can actually have some sort of a guideline in terms
Yeah.
of what technologies can actually implement what the companies is trying to achieve,
Hmm.
eventually.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the other key considerations would be making sure that all the key functional and non-functional requirements are being met by the cloud
Mm.
provider that
Mm.
you are
Mm.
having
Mm.
for your solution, of course.
Mm.
One of the key considerations as well would be like the security and compliance requirements.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Some really industries like the financial sector, for example, have strict regulations and
Hmm. Hmm.
compliance
Hmm.
requirements, and they ask for specific standards to be met, not only on
Hmm.
the platform, but at the solution level as well, and the application level.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Another thing would be like monitoring. You have to take to monitoring of the solution. All the non-functional the aspect and operational aspect you have to take into consideration
Hmm.
and because I always advise my clients that please note that the POCs that you have seen does not
Okay.
equate into a production grade solution.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
this is totally different, because it looks so easy. It is easier, I
Yeah.
would say, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Mm-hmm.
complete. To have a enterprise grade solution or a production grade solution, this is something
Agree.
else.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And of
So
course,
yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ahmed.
and
Yeah.
and of course the SLAs of the
Hmm.
platform. This one
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
well, in
Hmm.
terms of performance, in terms of the availability. If you have like storage intensive solutions that you need to read or write, like for example, big data analytics or stuff like that, you have to see the
Mm-hmm.
SLAs that provided by the provider. In
Mm-hmm.
terms of availability, the same. If you have a very critical, mission critical applications that you uh, require some sort of an SLA, you need to see the capabilities
Mm-hmm.
of this as well. So all these kind of considerations, things to take into account when you're uh, about to adopt the cloud or about to think to moving to the cloud, other than the cost savings and other than the competitive advantage. You have to think about what you should take into account as well.
Absolutely.
Um, I would say
Yeah.
also, what are the workloads that you currently have? What are you
Mm.
looking at? If you want, for
Mm.
example, SAP, does the cloud provider
Mm-hmm.
provide that? Uh, one other thing, the technical team that you have, the skill set of the team, do you need
Skill
to
set.
train
Yeah.
them?
Hmm.
It's absolutely. I've seen this 100 times. When I see that the CIO or CTO or someone on the level of a management that wants to actually force the cloud without having a proper team training, and this poses a lot of challenge. They are used to the on-premises
Absolutely.
technologies,
Hmm. Yeah.
and they are suddenly being thrown to the cloud without having proper. Yeah, exactly, and this happens a lot. Yeah, I've seen it a
Yes.
lot.
Yes. I was about to highlight that part actually because when as we have an product called Bistock 360 wherein we have a handful of customers who are in the Bistock environment and we see en mass like cloud adoption happening among the Bistock 360 customers of ours.
Yeah.
So one common challenge that we have observed here is a resistance to change and people are not, we do not have adequate Azure experts within the enterprises who can drastically scale up and then adopt to these cloud services. So like we being playing the role of consultants, we in most of the calls we had to suggest them on what is the right service to utilize and how do they rightly build their business application in. And that also drove us to build another solution which can be an ideal support management tool for Azure. That's a
Mhm.
serverless 360, the product that I'm working with. As you rightly said, the skill set of the team is very critical when we are initiating and migration from on premises to the cloud space, and you have to choose
Exactly.
the right tools to support your migration as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Migration is a whole new, yeah, I would say a nightmare, but it's not. Sometimes it's easy, but it's usually not, actually.
Yeah, when
But
rightly handled, when you have right
yeah,
people to guide you.
exactly. And when,
Yeah.
when I'm talking about the technical team, I'm also talking about the development and the architects and the designers. Because again,
Yeah.
if you are an
Mm,
architect with just on-premises background,
mm,
um, the cloud is distributed by nature. It's had a distributed
true.
architecture by nature.
Mm,
So a
mm,
lot of
mm,
things had to be taken into consideration in terms of monitoring, in terms of the
mm,
performance, because you're adding a lot of network hops between the services. So
mm.
to manage this, to see this, to monitor this, to audit all this kind of uh, I would say mindset has to
Yeah.
be in the background of the designer or architect. I would say the last consideration
Mm,
that
mm,
should
mm,
be taken into account is the platform itself, the roadmap of the Azure, for example, or the platform roadmap.
mm, mm, mm.
Is it aligned with our roadmap as an organization or not? For
Yes.
example, we are investing in the healthcare. Uh,
Mm.
is Azure investing as well, or is about to invest in it or not? Blockchain
Yes.
is another
Mm,
example.
mm,
The quantum computing, for example, if you are looking into this something very new and you want to do something drastically different, this is
mm,
another
mm, mm.
example. And as you mentioned
Exactly.
earlier, democratizing artificial intelligence, machine learning, making it accessible and available to everyone. So all this
Mm,
kind of roadmap for Azure, you can see if it matches your own roadmap and this
exactly.
aligns with the strategic direction of the company. Is it aligned with your direction? So this is highlights the importance of having a strategic direction and a long-term vision.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is altogether a new dimension that you have highlighted, Ahmed, which is very critical
Mhm.
for people who are considering cloud migration. Yeah. So I
Absolutely.
have often heard the security being a big concern when people are migrating to cloud. Is this something
Yeah.
really need to be concerned about, or how can we handle it the better way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you are talking about organizations that have strict regulations, it will be really, you will be actually following their guidelines and making sure that every item in their checklist is met, whether
Yeah.
it's on the platform level or application level. So this will be somewhere guided. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
not and actually provided with this kind of guideline, you actually
Mm,
have to make sure that you have, I would say, the proper level of security.
mm, mm,
Because
mm,
if you don't have sensitive information, for example,
mm-hmm.
just as a quick example, you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be overly securing each and every component because it impacts the performance at the end of the day, for
Performance.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
coming with the right level, I would say it is uh, challenging, but you have a lot at your disposal with Azure, for example. You can have
Mm,
data at rest
mm-hmm.
encryption. You can have data in transit securing in the,
Mm,
and even you have now data in use. That's a
mm,
secure
mm,
computation
mm,
that you can have with the new virtual machines and the new technologies that can actually encrypt your data and
mm-hmm.
isolate your data into memory enclaves in Azure. So all these
Okay.
kind of levels you have to take into consideration. But
Mm,
but
mm,
whenever you're implementing this, you
mm.
should see the trade-offs between the challenges of adding additional security layers
Okay.
and the performance at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Like we need to take a cautious decision between the
Yep,
performance and the security layers, and
yep,
the like adhere to what is required for the business sector that we are dealing with.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's and
Mm.
by the way, it's no longer the
Mm-hmm.
security is no longer bounded to the network perimeter. It goes beyond that in Azure. It goes to the
Mm-hmm.
identity level. They are focused more on
Mm.
the identity level, focused more on the native features with the data services, for example, like data is encrypted by at rest. But do you need to have a customer managed key? Do you have to have your own key to encrypt
Mm-hmm.
this data instead of Azure, for example?
Mm-hmm.
So there is the key vault, for example, to put your sensitive keys and information and secrets
Mm-hmm.
in a secure manner and retrieve them at runtime rather than having to put them uh, uh, hard coded in your code. Um, I, I I think this topic would go on and on,
On
but
and
and yeah, and actually I have written a blog post about
mm-hmm.
this that I would love to maybe be
Yeah.
invited back in a future session to talk about the security checklist that I came with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe to have this kind of discussion as well of how kind of
That's
security
interesting.
checklist level, yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult to come up with a fine grained, I would say, security checklist because there is tons of services, hundreds of services,
Mm-hmm.
and hundreds of features within the service. So I would say this is another topic. I just don't want to
Altogether.
take. Yeah,
We
yeah,
reserve you for another session. Yeah.
exactly. Let's reserve it for that. Let's keep it for another session. Yeah,
Yes. So we talked about a lot of exciting things like what initially explored about the benefits, then we compared the various offerings, which one to choose based on our business requirement. We talked
yeah,
about the challenges, security considerations. Assuming that we have dealt with all these phases absolutely fine, and what is the benefits that I reap out of my cloud implementation? Let's let's highlight that by the as a conclusion of the session.
yeah. So I think as a starting point for organizations that are moving newly to the cloud,
Hmm.
cost savings can be indeed one of the main
Hmm.
benefits that can be reaped from the cloud.
Yeah.
The other benefit would be that how to have a competitive edge over the competition in the market,
Hmm.
in the industry that you're working in.
Yeah.
And this can actually, as I said, being materialized with a lot of stuff related to the features that are built in and the global reach and the scalability
Mm-hmm.
and all the way to the speed to market and the time to market to the agility that
Hmm.
is provided to you by the practices and the technologies. As you said, that you can have a proof of concept just written and provisioned in one day, and the second day you just can throw it away and try something else. All this
Yeah.
kind of flexibility and agility and co- provides you with the competitive edge or a competitive advantage over your competition. So I think the main two pillars are the cost savings and the competitive advantage.
Yes. So we are clearly seeing organizations taking advantage of cloud, and it is for everybody who is listening to. If you are not aware of Azure or into cloud, it is the right time to kickstart and then scale up yourself into this cloud environment. And Ahmed has got recommendations on where to get started.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. So I have two books that I couldn't recommend more. Yeah,
Mm.
they are amazing books for Azure. One is the Azure Cloud. It's called Azure Cloud Native Architecture Map
Mhm.
Book. It's written by Stefan Eiskens and Ed Price. Um, this book is published in Feb 2021, so it's relatively recently. So you
Recent?
can
Oh.
actually, yeah, it's very recent,
Mm-hmm.
and it's important for cloud for Azure books to be recent, just to be relevant to the because it the Azure is a moving target, so it's important to have a book that's published recently. But this book is amazing that gives you a lot of coverage on the Azure services, and even have a map book that you can see how the services are interconnected and how they are categorized and grouped. So you can see a visual
Mm-hmm.
map of these services in the different types of services
Mm-hmm.
like we
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in Azure as well. So this one is one book. The
Mm-hmm.
second book is Azure SQL Revealed by Bob Ward.
Mm-hmm.
This is published in October 2020. Again, relatively recent. This is an amazing
Mm-hmm.
book on Azure if you want to get to know Azure SQL very well and even get insights into what behind the scenes Microsoft did in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
hyperscale, for example, Azure SQL hyperscale, and how the architecture of the hyperscale allowed it to scale to that level of SQL. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the two books. I'm sure that you will be adding the links. And by the way, these are
Yes.
free ebooks that
Mm-hmm.
available at Microsoft.
Awesome, awesome, Ahmed. That's such an wonderful session I had with you on our Azure on Air podcast show, and I feel so content. Like we have had such a complete session with all necessary inputs that we wanted to deliver to the community. Thank you a lot for being on our
Thank you.
show.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Cove.co.